we'd like to know more about you, so visit our website, whispersradio.com, and click on the banner at the top of the page that says We're Listening. Thanks, and enjoy the show.
Welcome to Whispers on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog. It is 6:08 p.m. I'm Jordan Klein.
I'm Nick Queen.
And I'm Lola Miller.
Ba-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun.
That's for you iTunes people out there.
With us today also we have Mr. Eric Violet joining us. He is a paranormal investigator with Wheeling Paranormal.
Yes, hello.
Hi, Eric.
Hi, Eric. You can be a little bit more wordy than that.
Please.
Hi, Ohio Valley.
Oh, it's going to be a long I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
We're on at a different time tonight. Usually we got the 8 o'clock spot, but we are filling in for Mr. Todd Jeffers today.
Yeah, see? You've moved up. You're now, the guest host.
I put on my big boy PJs today.
Ooh.
Took off the underoos.
I just couldn't think of the word.
Well, normally he wears these things with the bunnies.
Aw.
Yeah,
I'll tell
It
you
goes
what,
in his
cute.
furry
It's like
thing.
the thing. Yeah, it's like the thing off of Christmas Story. He comes down.
Gosh darn it, I look so cute.
I bet you too. I just bet you
I tell you what, along the chicken suit story, listen to this, all right? I live next to a creek, so I got rats in my
Creek?
garage. Creek, whatever,
Let's
wherever
throw
you're
the-
from.
You got
Throw the
rats.
whole thing out.
Anywho, there's a little stream of water that runs through next to my house. But I had a chicken suit downstairs, and they made a nest out of it, so I no longer have.
Oh, man.
Got rid of the
So you are now out of the furry hobby.
I'll tell you what, I'm a furry free. I've been furry free for 6 months.
Sounds like a new rehab program to me.
So the rats took care of the chicken suit.
It was sad. It was like getting rid of my high school days.
Moment of silence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we're done.
All right. Well.
Everybody bow their head.
Well, for those that don't know who we are, we're wondering
We're not
where
sure
the heck
either.
is Todd Jeffers, and are hitting your radio, and we're usually on at 8 o'clock, I believe.
Yes.
Something
You believe?
like that. I don't know. I walk in, Jordan drives me here, and he points me towards the door. We talk about the paranormal, ghost, UFOs, chicken suits, anything you can think of. We've had Bigfoot people in here before.
We've had some pretty big guests.
Yeah, we've had some pretty big guests, actually. People that we wouldn't talk to normally, that normally wouldn't talk to us as well. They run from us on the street, but they don't know who we are over the radio. So so we're going to have a little bit different format, I guess, than you're used to with Todd. I think.
Nick can do a good Lisa impression. I don't.
Hello, guys. Jordan, take off your shirt. No. And that actually did happen on our show once. So it was the Bigfoot episode. She was wanting to check and make sure Jordan wasn't a Bigfoot. So
Oh, that's right.
that is right. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
You yelled at her for it a little
Yes,
bit. Like, hey, what
I
are you
did.
doing? This isn't Todd's show. None of that.
For the record, for some reason, there is a picture of Alaska's governor on this desk, and I think she just won my vote.
Hey, there's more sitting there. I'm telling you, for having probably at the time those pictures were taken 4 children. Damn, I wish I looked like that. And she loves her guns.
Ugh,
She loves her guns.
me too.
Her guns are yours.
We should probably go on a break. So,
All right, the number here, 304-214-1600. If you're out of the area, listening online, check us out at 866-514-1600. Give us a call. Tell us a scary story. Tell us anything out of the ordinary that you've come up with. I'm sure we'd love to hear it. Nick,
I'm just glad you said something after the gun thing, because I was speechless. How about you? Yeah, speechless.
Yes.
Yeah,
I had to do it.
We're going to move on to the black-eyed kids, and I know Lola was talking and asking me about that a little bit earlier. Like, she looked it up a little bit. We've talked about it a little bit. It's not the illegitimate children of the black-eyed peas. My little joke that I made earlier. That actually, I put that on there for for the host to not read, it's like, that's my joke.
Oh, well, I read it.
I know you did. 7:30 this morning, and I'm driving to school, like, still asleep, and John said it, and I'm like, oh, geez, that's going to be read all day.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
people,
it was.
I am that lame. So,
That is Nick's humor. It's not just an act. He
Yes.
is that pathetic.
my name's Nick, and I'm a lame joke teller. So.
This is just like group therapy.
It is.
Yes, it is.
Welcome to Whispers Group Therapy.
Uh-huh.
So the story actually came from Greg Bishop. He runs a blog called UFO Mystic, and he's talking about the different. This started back in the '90s with a guy named. Let me get his name up here. He's a reporter out of Texas.
Is it? I
Brian
looked on-
Bethel.
Yes,
Brian
that's
Bethel.
it, Brian.
He's a reporter out of Texas. Greg even said, for full disclosure, he does talk about chemtrail theories. Don't know what chemtrails are. You look up in the sky and you see these clouds of
Chemical trails.
chemical trails. They call them chemtrails.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what the conspiracy theorists call it. That's what I'm going to call it. But
Nick's
if you
closet
see those, they're
conspiracy
saying that they're putting chemicals into the air and stuff like that. But yeah. So he wrote pretty level-headed articles about it. Well, this is supposedly something that happened to him, and I'm going to read it. And if you guys want to interrupt at any time and say, whoa, what are you talking about there? I have no problem. And he says this is posted back in 1996, and this is what he says happened to him. He says, my internet service provider used to have offices in a shopping center before they moved to their comparatively lush accommodations elsewhere. There was a drop box at that original location. The monthly bill was due, and thus there, but for the grace of the net, I went. It's about 9:30 p.m. when I left from my relatively isolated apartments. It's about 10 to 15 minutes or so to downtown Abilene, right next to Camelot Communications. Old location is a $1.50 movie theater, and at the time, the place is featuring the masterwork of modern film, Mortal Kombat.
Yes.
Yes, Mortal Kombat was an awesome movie. Skip ahead a little bit. Two boys come up to his car, and he says here, both appeared to be in that semi-mystical stage of life children get into where you can't exactly tell their age. Both were boys, and my initial impression is that they were somewhere between 10 and 14 years old. Boy number one was the spokesman. Boy number two didn't speak during the entire conversation, at least not in words. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, keep going. There's more. There are more. What's the word I'm looking for? Anecdotal stories about this. I'll pull up another one because I had them all pulled up today,
and I've read a couple, so I'm hoping I'm going to cross my fingers. You have the one that I like. Boy number one was slightly taller than his companion, wearing a pullover, hooded shirt with a sort of gray checked pattern and jeans. I couldn't see his shoes. His skin was olive-colored and had curly, medium-length brown hair. He exuded an air of quiet confidence, not unlike Eric Violet. Boy number two had pale skin with a trace of freckles. His primary characteristic seemed to be looking around nervously, not unlike Jordan. He was dressed in a similar manner to his companion, but his pullover was a light green color. His hair was a sort of pale orange. They didn't appear to be related, at least directly. Oh, great, I thought they're going to hit me up for money. And then the air changed. I've explained this before, but for the benefit of any new lurkers out there, right before I experience something strange, there's a change in perception that comes about, which I describe in the above manner. It's basically enough time to know it's too late. So there I was, filling out a check in my car, which was still running, and in a sudden panic over the appearance of two little boys, I was confused, but an overwhelming sense of fear and unearthliness rushed in nonetheless. The spokesman smiled, and the sight, for some inexplicable reason, chilled my blood. I could feel the fight or flight responses kicking in. Something I knew instinctually was not right, but I didn't know what it could possibly be. Jordan?
We've got a phone call. You want to take this?
Sure,
it's
let's
Wade.
take the...
Hi, Wade. You're on the air.
Hey, Wade.
Good evening. I heard someone was there from Wheeling Paranormal.
Indeed.
Yes.
I would like to ask you, where is the most haunted place in Wheeling or Ohio County? Because, I don't believe in paranormal activity. I'd like to visit it and see for myself.
Okay.
Eric?
I can answer that.
Go ahead, Lola.
I've heard a lot of stories about the original old hospital.
Well, it's torn down now.
Huh?
The original Wheeling Hospital?
Or like
Well,
It's a old building in downtown Wheeling.
That is a hospital. We can't give the.
It has a smokestack.
We can't
Yeah.
give the
Before.
initials. We can't give.
We can't tell you the name, but it's the old hospital in Wheeling itself.
Now, of course, Eric was
What block is it on?
It's
Kind of across from Center Market,
it would be something
You know-
I would say near like
the creek.
near the highway and
Yeah,
creek and
Center Market.
Yeah.
that area.
Yeah.
A hospital.
I'll tell you what, the strangest place I've been to, there was an old Victorian home. I can't say where it was at.
Yeah, they're not allowed to do that. They can't give that out.
Believe it or not, sir, all three of us, me, Nick, and Eric, are all part of Wheeling Paranormal.
Yes.
So I guess we can all kind of answer this. But this home was probably the scariest place, to the point where, man, like 3 of our investigators quit after going to this place. So
There was a lady giving ghost tours last fall. She part of your organization?
No.
Not that we know of.
Yeah, I think that's Diane Donnelly.
Now there's
Yeah,
there's a
I
couple
believe-
of different places in the area. There's Ohio Valley Paranormal, which we're not, of course, part of, and then there's we're Wheeling Society of Paranormal Research. We call ourselves Wheeling Paranormal. Kind of Wheeling Society of Paranormal Research is kind of a mouthful.
I think that, like the paranormal shows that are on TV, I believe in that, like the Bigfoot thing that was making all the news
Yeah, that's
a couple of weeks ago.
did you catch our Bigfoot show?
No. All right.
Well, it's okay.
You missed nothing.
Yeah.
We really didn't believe in the
We
Bigfoot either.
were kind of sad about that, especially when he said that there were no body or evidence of these because the
The ground
soil
was
in
acid.
Ohio is too acidic. So,
All right. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
There's
God.
always excuses for stuff. That's
Yeah.
the way I put it.
All right,
So,
children with black eyes.
Children with black eyes. Let me see. I can't remember exactly where it was. So there I was filling out a check in my car. These 2 boys come up, and the spokesman, which was boy 1, smiled, and sight for some inexplicable reason chilled my blood. I could feel fight or flight. I already said that, didn't I?
Yeah.
Sure did.
I rolled down the window very, very slightly and asked yes. Spokesman smiled again, broader this time. His teeth were very, very white. Hey, mister, what's up? We have a problem, he said. His voice was that of a young man, but his diction, quiet, calm, and something I still couldn't put my finger on, made my desire to flee even greater. You see, my friend and I want to see the films, but we forgot our money, he continued. We need to go to our house to get it. Want to help us out? Okay, journalists are required to talk to lots of people, and that includes children. I've seen and spoken to lots of them. Here's how that usually goes. Mister, can I see that camera? Every one of us has talked to kids. We know how that goes. Add in some feet shuffling, body sway, and you've got it. In short, they're usually apologetic. People generally teach children what to say when they're talking to adults. The kid was in no way fitting the mold. His command of language was incredible, and he showed no signs of fear. He spoke as if my help was a foregone conclusion. When he grinned, it was as if he was trying to say, I know something, and you're not going to like it. But the only way you're going to find out what it is will be to do what I say. Well, was the best reply I could offer. And here's where it starts to get strange. The quiet Yes, I know. The quiet companion looked at the spokesman with a mixture of confusion and guilt on his face. He seemed in some way shocked, not with his friend's brusque manner, but that I didn't just immediately open the door. He eyed me nervously. The spokesman seemed a bit perturbed, too. I still was registering something wrong with both. Come on, mister, the spokesman said again, smooth as silk. Car salesman could learn something from this kid. Now we just want to go to our house, and we're just 2 little boys. That really scared me. Something in the tone and diction and all again set off my alarm bells. My mind was frantically trying to process what it was perceiving about the 2 figures that was wrong. Was all I could manage. I felt myself digging my fingernails into the steering wheel. What movie were you going to see? I asked finally. Mortal Kombat, of course, the spokesman said. Yes, Jordan's put his fist in the air, pumping it. The silent one nodded in affirmation, standing a few paces behind. Oh, I said. I stole a quick glance at the marquee and at the clock in my car. Mortal Kombat had been playing for an hour, the last showing of the evening. The silent one looked increasingly nervous. I think he saw my glances and suspected I might be detecting something was not above board. Come on, mister, let us in. We can't get into your car until you do, you know. The spokesman said soothingly, "Just let us in. We'll be gone before you know it. We'll go to our mother's house." We locked eyes. To my horror, I realized my hand had strayed toward the door lock, which was engaged and was in the process of opening it. I pulled it away, probably a bit too violently, but it did force me to look away from the children. I turned back. I offered weakly, and then my mind snapped into focus. For the first time, I noticed their eyes. Now, this is, of course, where the black-eyed kids thing comes from. They were coal black, no pupil, no iris, just two staring orbs reflecting the red and white light of the marquee. At that point, I know my expression betrayed me. The silent one had had a look of horror on his face and a combination that seemed to indicate the impossible had just happened and we've been found out. Skip a little bit. He says, "Come on, mister, we won't hurt you. You have to let us in. We don't have a gun." And he's, the last statement scared the living hell out of me because at that point, by his tone, he was plainly saying, "We don't need a gun." Was I not allowed to say that word?
Yes, you can say that word.
You said that. All right. And then
Lola cusses like a sailor.
Yeah, Lola, you cuss all the time. That wasn't even a cuss word. It's a geographic
I said
location.
you could.
Okay, I have a question.
Sure.
I have a question. When was this taking place?
1996.
Okay, like here's my question, and it reminds me of when we had the Mothman guy, and part of the Mothman story was that there were people coming out, the Men in Black, and they were saying that it was like they were wearing the older clothes that weren't in style anymore.
60s.
They were saying things that like 23 skidoo, that people just didn't say anymore. And when he said, we just need to go get some money to watch the films. That's what clicked in. And then there was another one about there was like people in suits like with this huge creepy grin on that would just be like walking down the street, but their face never changed from the grin. And it just like reminded me, okay, here's a kid that's wearing the older clothes saying,
All right, well, this story is, I thought this was a British story, but maybe not. But this is a 47-year-old woman that runs an apartment building.
Oh, you got my hand. Oh, boy.
Okay.
This was a good one.
Nick, man.
Hey, I'm happy.
See, Eric, this is how it is every week. All right, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's she runs an apartment building and she shows apartments to people that just randomly knock on the door looking to rent a place. And she said she'd never felt this way before in all the years that she'd done this job. But she opened the door and she said he didn't look weird, like dressed funny or any of that. And he looked to be a young man, about like 17 or 18 years old. She said it was his eyes, and she said it made her hair stand up on the back of her neck, and she was shaking just from looking in his eyes because they were all black, no white, no pupil, no iris, just coal black. And the whole thing that when he was talking to her was the same thing, this feeling of absolute dread, scared to death, shaking, and yet this irresistible urge to do what he is asking her to do, which was not, in this case, get in her house, but to get into a house. And every one of the stories that I've read today have said the same thing, that they're asking for you to invite them in, and there were similarities to, or issues brought up about vampires. A vampire cannot come in to your house unless he is invited or she is invited. And so they're drawing these similarities between those two things. But that was one. And then there was another one from a 16-year-old kid that was out skateboarding kind of late at night. Two young boys, one like about 8 years old and one a little bit older, asking to go to his house and use his phone because something had happened and they needed to call home. And he said, well, here's my cell phone. Just here, go ahead. All the time, just getting this terrible feeling that something was really wrong. And when they didn't want to borrow that phone, they wanted to go to his house. That's when he said, that's it, I'm out of here. And he ran home, told his mom, and of course his mom's going to, yeah, okay, what were you smoking in the weeds? But every time he looked out then, for quite a long time after, these two kids were hanging out on the sidewalk in front of his house.
Wow.
But all the suggestions is that they have, for some reason, and nobody knows what they want or what would happen if you invited them in, but that seems to be what they really want, is to be invited into your home or your car, or, you know.
See, to me, this kind of reminds me somewhat of like a demon kind of, presence where they would have to be invited. They can't just come. They, for whatever reason.
So what do you think? Do you think it's, I don't know, like, part of me's thinking, okay, if you get invited in, then you're going to get possessed and turned into one of these black-eyed kids, or are you going to get bitten?
Well,
is it a vampire?
I have an idea, Jordan. We should have them come to you, and you invite them in, and we'll observe. No, serious. I wonder.
Seriously, Jordan, we really want.
We've got some phone calls.
Okay.
All right. This is Dan.
Hi, Dan. You're on the air.
Jordan,
Yes.
how are you?
Good. How are you, sir?
I'm okay. I just wanted to know if there is any truth to the myth of the ghost photographer that walks around moaning the words, fuzzy pickles.
I believe that is a true story. I think.
Because I've experienced it. I believe I experienced it with you.
Jordan, I hear a story coming.
Dan, I knew this was going to be good.
Oh, Lord.
That's
He's
little
turning red.
inside one
Jordan's
there.
backing
Yeah,
away
it
from the
must be more
question.
than a little one, because he is. He's turning
not
really
taking that.
red.
Oh.
You remember that one? Okay, good.
I think I vaguely remember something like that happening.
Oh, I think you're going to
Vaguely.
not vaguely remember here in a second.
I can't wait till break.
Think about that. You remember that one.
Thanks for your call, Dan.
All right, Jordan. You take care.
You too.
All right. Scott, right? Is it Scott?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi,
I knew
Scott.
I got it right.
Hello?
Oh, you're on the air.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, Scott.
What's going on, Scott?
Yeah, my point on the story you were reading is, first of all, I have a young daughter. She's going to be 6, and I tell her never to get in the car with strangers. Right. We were all kids, right?
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
I never asked, hey, I need a ride, mister. I'm 8 years old, 10 years old. That would freak me out in the first place.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. We're taught, stranger
Not
danger,
to. Yeah, don't get in the big van with no windows.
Boy, you had very specific parents, didn't you?
Oh, my God. Well, I mean, it's common sense.
Yeah,
they
I
were
know.
Like, don't get in car with strangers.
You don't want any candy, trust me.
Yeah. I mean, that would freak me out.
Oh, yeah, you're
Especially
right.
especially if they spoke like adults and they're like 8 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Although those freak me out. I have this standing, mantra of little kids are usually scary.
Yeah, kids are creepy anyway.
Kids
Children
are
of the
creepy,
Corn.
especially when you get children of the
What was
corn.
it? Village of the Damned, like the whole thing.
Oh,
That was,
the Grudge, the little kid on the Grudge. Oh, I mean, and my all-time favorite of little scary girls is the
Shining,
Shining.
yeah.
The blue
Shining.
dresses, and if I ever see 2 little girls standing in a hallway anywhere, even if it's in a crowded mall, walking towards me, I'm running and screaming. I mean, because it's just not right.
and I will videotape it, and it will be on YouTube that
Yes.
evening.
Yes.
But you will not see my face. You'll just know it's me from the side.
Thanks for your
All
call.
right, thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a
Thanks,
good one.
Scott. Okay, here's another story. This is from, it was posted 5/21/04. But this one is a girl. The other stories that I read, the kids were boys. This one is a little girl knocked at somebody's townhouse door, said she was lost, looked to be between 10 and 12. She had a coat on with a hood because it was raining out, but she knocked on the door and said she needed to call her parents because she was lost. And the guy said, he asked her where she lived, and she just kept saying, please, can I come in and call my parents? I'm lost. It'll only take a minute. And then when he said he was going to call the police for her, he closed the door, went in his room, picked up the phone, and she kept banging and banging. And she said, well, please let me come in and wait for the police here because it was cold. He said he almost let her in, but the whole thing just sounded so odd. So he advised her to please go to the manager's office, and he would let the police know. He closed the door, walked away, called the cops, and told the story. And, of course, they arrived to find no little girl in the manager's office, and the manager said she hadn't seen anyone like that.
Wow, this is scary.
Well, these stories are mainly pointing at adults getting approached by children, whereas the caller was just talking about children telling your children not to approach adults. Well, obviously, you're telling your child not to do that,
Yeah.
but these stories are not that. These are young children coming up to the adults rather than vice versa, the adults going to the children, you know what I mean?
Well, I think what he was saying, though, is that most kids know not
Yeah, they
to
know,
approach
they know
an
that,
adult.
yeah, so he's pointing out the fact.
Which makes it even weirder.
Even weirder, yes.
Okay, I think we probably should take a break.
Okay, we're going to be back here in just a moment with Dan Brown.
Oh, yeah, I want to hear how his little project.
And you'll find out more about that here in a second. This is Whispers on AM 1600, WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog.
First dawn's light, gotta free my mind, get you out of sight. All across this open sea, sparkle blue beauty like a young man's dream.
Welcome back to Whispers on AM 1600, WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog. It is, I said 8. It's 6:39 here in downtown Wheeling. Phone number's here, 304-214-1600. If you're listening online, 866-514-1600. With us today, we got the wonderful Lola Miller running the show in the back.
See,
We got,
he knows.
you got to talk up Lola. If not, you're done.
I know.
She's the key to everything.
We got Eric Violet with Wheeling Paranormal hanging out with us, and we have Dan Brown, Crazy Dan the Lego Man, runs the Toy and Plastic Brick Museum in Bel Air.
Thank you for having me.
You got to get up into that
I gotta get
microphone.
up the mic.
Yes, you do.
I'm not good at radio yet, guys. Just
Yet?
shoot me and hit me upside the side of the head.
We'll get there.
Little
I gotta-
closer, yeah.
Yes.
Don't be afraid
I
of the
could
microphone.
say something, but I'll
No,
wait,
the-
save it for a break.
This is PC radio, guys. You can't talk about stuff like that.
He
and,
knows me so well.
Dan has brought Brienne, who will be building Bionicles.
Yes, indeed. I'll be building some Bionicles for the Plastic Brick Museum.
What is a Bionicle?
It is a new set that has been brought out by Lego in 2001. And
Right.
ever since they came out, people have been building more complicated models over time.
Kind of looks like a robot.
Yeah, the one that I brought today is it's like a robotic creature. And so far, I have the head built, and it's, I'd say, about the size of a couple good grapefruits.
And if you have a webcam, you can probably see that on Jordan's desk. That's hopefully.
It's very cool and very creepy looking at the same time.
Yes, it is. It's kind of scary.
It's scary. I mean, yeah, if you walk in the middle of the night and you see one of those things coming at you, you're definitely going to think you're in a horror.
It's crazy. Brienne, I have to do it. She's from Alaska. Your governor, vice president nominee. How do you feel about that?
I think it's pretty cool that she got nominated. Although it's like I don't really have too many political views myself. I hope that she's successful.
There we go.
You think she'd be good? I mean, from what you know?
I think so.
Does she do Alaska well?
As far as
You heard it here
know,
first.
being a governor.
WKKX.
She did a
We
pretty
brought
good job
Alaska
up there.
here.
Just somebody hit him.
We're bringing tourism to the Ohio Valley. We're bringing in people that are interesting. We're making a difference in the Ohio Valley.
Boy, and for somebody that was never been on radio, listen to him already.
He's going
Oh,
nuts over there.
I can preach from the box too. Come on, I'm from Bel Air. We preach all the
All
time.
American town.
We can swear at you. We can say anything we want to you. We're from Bel Air.
All right, Dan, you got the Toy and Plastic Brick Museum, and you're about to do something pretty amazing. What is that?
We're going to build the world's largest castle made of Lego. I know it sounds kind of creepy, but it's actually pretty cool. Basically, it's adult fans, and we're going to be inviting the rest of the public to come in and help us build the town around this thing. It's huge.
Yeah, we were there earlier, and it's the wizard
Oh, the
Wizard.
glowing eye wizard. I wish I could do the commercial. I've really tried to get some movie companies and other places into Blair to come in and actually come to the museum because we've got a life-size band. Anyone who's been there can attest to it. I mean,
And it's great. The band, it's completely robotic. I mean, it's all Legos, but they move around, they dance, they sing songs. I like it.
And they're above your first world record.
Yep.
Which is the
world's largest Lego image. We are now in the Guinness Book of World Records. Hopefully, we'll be mentioned in the 2009 book if Lego stops fighting us. The name.
Stop Lego.
The name. Lego's interesting. They're a very interesting company. They make a wonderful product, and the product speaks for itself. But the company's gone through some transitions in the last 4 or 5 years that have made it very interesting for entrepreneurs like myself to do things different. And unless you fit their mold, kind of like the Bionicles, they're a great marketing scheme, but they really never intended for people to build with them like she does. And she basically takes a stagnant art form and turns it into something just right off the hook. I mean,
something awesome.
It looks like a robotic dragon head.
That's kind of what it's going to be.
Oh, yeah!
But it's going to be more or less like a big two-legged giant monster with
Hold
a
that
big
up.
worm body.
Hold that up a little bit, so we can take a look at it.
Oh, have her do it because she can
Oh,
turn around. Oh, you should see.
There we go.
The munch mouth and everything. She makes some interesting sounds too when she's playing with it.
Yeah, it's like.
Girls play with Lego. Okay.
Yes, we do.
It's been the demographics not right. They keep doing kids. They say boys, 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 but girls can turn around and build things that are just totally creepy too.
Now was this like any kind of mold, or is it just spare parts? You were like, wow,
This is
I'm
just.
gonna make a head.
I've just pulled spare parts out of a bin and just build it out of my head.
Wow.
I'm good at conceptualizing crazy monsters because I've drawn dragons since I was a little kid.
Oh, and what do you do for a living?
I make violins.
Yes. Okay, guys. If anyone needs a good violin, we'll add a number here one of these times for doing it. And you should see the dragon heads she puts on the violin. So if you want a unique
Nice.
dragon-headed violin, you can definitely.
Now,
call.
do you have a website?
I do not have a website yet, but
Yet.
I hope to have one in the future.
Call the Blair Toy Museum and we'll order a violin for you.
Yeehaw!
There we go. I tell you what, that toy museum's everywhere now. Violins.
If I only could play the violin.
There's going to be a dragon-headed Lego violin coming out of that museum here soon.
Now that would be awesome. Do you have any musical instruments there?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, we
I
have-
know you got the guitar for the band and stuff.
No.
but-
We actually have another guitar that was made by a master builder for the museum. I forget where it is now. It was in the Cultec room, and then it turned around and migrated off somewhere. So they end up on shelves everywhere, and things move around so much over there. I can't keep track.
Is
of
it actually a working guitar?
No, it's a non-functional, but it's actually replicated after a regular guitar.
And to understand why he can't figure out where it is, there's over 36,000 square feet of Lego goodies.
fun.
Lego
Yeah.
fun. Lego
And
dementia. Yes.
I walked in today and I kind of had a nerd.
Nick runs around like a kid in a candy
is
store.
awesome.
He like starts clapping his hands like, yay!
We have observed that.
Just like when you found that story.
Yeah.
That was awesome. But I mean, I walk in and I see this room and I thought it was where the boats were and there's pirate ships and stuff, and it wasn't. But it was even more cool. It's an entire fantasy scape. I think Lou was trying to tell me how many pieces there are on it, and it's just, I mean, there's dragons, there's soldiers, there's storming a castle, and there's no words to express what it, how cool it was.
Well, for the math whizzes out there, let's talk about Mount Rushmore. We've got a 50-plate Mount Rushmore, and if you do the math on it, there's 48 by 48 studs on a standard plate. Multiply that by 50, and then turn around and multiply that by 2,048 pieces, and multiply that by 3 cents or 4 cents a piece, and then you'll have an idea of what this hobby costs. It's a very high-end hobby. But it basically it appeals to everybody. You can take an artist that runs in 2D and he can make something. You take an artist that runs in 3D and they can make something. Any sculptural model, any thing you can make on a computer, anything you can see, you can build out of Lego if you have enough of them.
Now at your museum now you have a life-size Darth Vader.
Yes.
You got a completely 3D, probably as big as Eric Spider-Man.
Yep.
Dinosaurs.
Oh yeah.
I can't say whether or not they're life-size.
Spider-Man.
said Spider-Man.
Good baby dinosaurs.
Did you say Spider-Man? R2-D2.
Yep.
Big
the R2
bionicles.
Big
There's
bionic.
going to
Bionicles.
be a big dragon-like bionicle. You got the band. You got soon to be 2 world records.
Yep.
Sports players, you got Kobe Bryant, you have
Dirk Nowitzki. And Dirk is made out of custom bricks. He's actually made out of flesh-colored bricks, specially made by the company. 20,000 flesh-colored bricks. Yeah.
Wow. Now the clone trooper. The clone trooper stands
you
up.
mean the battle droid.
The battle droid. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's a 1-to-1 scale robot. He's basically a furniture lift on crack. He's, and the best part is they actually made a little mistake when they made him. He actually makes a air escaping sound when he goes. It's like a pff sound, like there. And what ends up happening is basically it actually makes the kids move back. So it's really cool. It actually works. It's got a good function to it. So they don't stick their hands in there and lose a thumb or anything. Liability. Thank you, lawyer. But basically, it's just, everything's made to impress people. I mean, and like all of our clubs, we're trying to make something bigger than the other guy, and bigger car, bigger house, whatever. We just build bigger. And if somebody builds something in 3-foot scale, we have to build in 5. If somebody builds in 50-foot scale, we have to build in 100-foot scale.
Now, how long have you been doing this? I know we've talked to you about this before. How old were you when you started this hobby, and how much has it cost you over the years?
The IRS is probably listening, so I'm not going to tell you exactly how much I've been involved in it. But,
had to ask the question.
Yeah, I was building as a little kid, obviously. Basically, I think about 5 or 6 years old. And then I used to bug my dad for, we'd take it to the store. I'd want 2 Lego sets. He wanted to buy me 1, and I'd always get 2. And then just over the years, habitual pack rat, thank you very much. So I turned around and just collected and collected and collected. And I really didn't realize how much stuff I had until I put it in one place. And when you buy an old school, it's really cool to find out how much stuff you have, kind of a challenge to see if you can fill the whole thing. Well, I won. I filled the whole thing.
Good job.
Thank you.
And what's the first cool thing that you built?
First cool thing, it was a guitar, actually.
It was a guitar?
It was a dual-necked guitar. I no longer have it. It was destroyed for brick, but I built that when I was about 7 years old, and I let it sit there for about 10 years. It got all crusty and dirty and nasty, and finally I broke it apart for parts. But yeah, that was sitting in my TV room for a good 10 years. And then after that, I got into castles. So I like the castle theme, and then I entered what they call our dark ages, where you don't build. So, and then I kind of came out of it at about 4 or 5 years ago and decided I wanted to open a toy museum. And I went and talked to Alan at Kruger Street Station. Props for Alan. He's got a great place. And then I just wanted to do something different with a Lego bend to it. And then I met with Lego, and basically it turned into this monolith of Lego success.
That's awesome.
I love it there.
Now there's like 2 or 3 cities there. Just to skip. You walk in and there's like skyscrapers in one room, and there's the spaceship.
Yep.
Somebody had built you with the people their fingers move. There's so much stuff.
Here's something else I want to bring up. You were talking about like your big Lego guy that was a pirate.
Oh,
that actually sailed the seas.
Yes.
You have an astronaut.
When you run a museum based on Lego, it's very interesting. My favorite part of the whole place is actually the things behind the model. Example, when she's building here on the Bionicle sets, it's not the fact that she can build. It's the history behind the other models that she's made and the inspiration that she uses to build with. The different ways that she uses elements and parts that really make things different. When you're talking about models or you're talking about things, you have to come up with a good story behind them. And it's funny, we didn't have to embellish it all. The company that sent us our pirate was nice enough to lose it for us, and it ended up in the bowel of a ship for a year floating around the world. And they were going to auction it off as they do with any unused cargo, and they opened the crate to see what was in it, and they found an invoice for the toy museum, and boom, there he was. So he was floating around the world for a year, and then all of a sudden he showed up in the museum. So it was great.
Now, you were saying today you had an astronaut as well.
Yes, we have the only official NASA astronaut. Click McBrick is his name. And as a promotion, Lego turned around and brought him down to Cape Canaveral and had him go through astronaut training. So basically, we have an actual official astronaut at the museum.
So he went through everything. The
centrifuge. They have pictures of him everywhere around Cape Canaveral doing all the stuff that astronauts do, and then they gave him his official patches. So we actually have a NASA uniform on the astronaut. He's actually got his name, badge, and everything. It's really cool.
That's sweet.
All right, where is the museum at? For people that want to get there, how do they get there?
Well, let's see. By helicopter, you basically fly over the
yeah.
No.
I got that one.
By car, you turn around. Well, depending on what road they close this week or what time.
Well, I know that's a
if the tunnels
challenge.
are open, you take 470. Get off at the Blair, or the Route 7 exit south. Get off at the first Blair exit, which is the 48th Street exit. Hang a right, and it's the huge building on the right-hand side that says Plastic Brick Museum on it. It's on 4597 Noble Street.
What school? What was the name of that school?
The Gravel Hill School.
Gravel Hill School. Okay. Some people
It's
know.
up by the hospital. So anybody who's wounded and you want to have a fun time before you go in for surgery, come on over.
Check out some Legos.
Do you have any Lego doctors?
Go get your surgery.
Not yet. Might need one after this interview.
And is there a charge? And what are the hours? We need to know all this.
We'll charge you as much as physically possible. So
Okay.
we have a gift shop, so we're going to try and grab as much money as possible from you. It's $8 for adults, $6 for kids. It's worth every dime. We have a building room where the kids can come in and have a blast. You can color on the chalkboards. We have coloring contests and all kinds of stuff to do. And just the museum itself is really neat. So it's something very different. And either you can go to California, spend $2,000 to fly there and stay there and go to Legoland, or you can show up in Blair, Ohio.
And we'll have 2 world records there.
Two world records.
I mean, you can't beat that. Now, this weekend, you're
Brick show?
the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, correct?
Correct. Saturday's going to be the big day. Our shows are a little bit different than the national shows. The national shows are basically you walk around, you look at stuff. Ours is very interactive. We want you to build. We want you to color. We want you to come in just wanting to have fun. You can come and see the museum, too, of course, and see specific artists' works that are only going to be there for that weekend.
Okay.
We have, of course, the Bionicle. She's got a whole table of interesting creations and wild stuff. We've got custom bricks. We got a place coming in called Erickson Bricks that's going to be able to make your custom bricks for you and turn around and they engrave your name on them and things like that. We have a photographer coming in to take pictures of the kids from last year's world record. So if you I forgot to tell this, so this is world news. If you worked on last year's world record and you want your picture with the certificate that we just got from Guinness, come on in on Saturday and they will take your picture. They'll charge the heck out of you, but it's worth every dime. You worked on a Guinness World Record and you're going to have kudos for it.
Very nice. And Lola's gone.
We lost her.
Let's see what you did.
The Bionicles are taking over the booth.
Oh my goodness! Now, if teachers are listening and you will do field trips and things like that, they can bring a whole class at the same time.
Oh,
or
sure.
Do you have enough of those poofy things that will make them
definitely
take steps back?
We've had, I think, 6 or 7 school districts through so far. 4-H, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts. They've all had a blast. We have a nice little program for them where they come in and we charge them a group rate, which is very, very affordable. And they have a really fun time.
Okay, what's the phone number?
740-671-8890. Or let's see, I can never remember numbers, so it's 888-867-5310, like the song. So 867-5310.
Oh,
there it
it
is.
is. Yeah.
So it was 309. I tried to get the 309 one, but they wouldn't let me have it. So because I guess some police chief's daughter has it.
Oh,
so
nice.
I couldn't get that one.
My son had Hot Stud for a while, so
Oh, geez.
I didn't do ringtone, so I did a wild phone number.
You also have some websites, danstoymuseum.blogspot.com.
Oh,
that's a hard one. I couldn't find your regular one. I'm sorry.
Brickmuseum.net,
That is so
www.brickmuseum.net.
easy. Okay, brickshow2008.com, which is about the world record.
Correct.
And then people can go buy stuff at the brickmuseumgiftshop.com, and I have those linked on our website. So if you have a problem getting those down right now, go to our website, click on it, and go visit Dan online. So you guys are all gesturing, and you're scaring me half to death.
We're just trying to get ready for some CNN.
Oh, forget them. This is local radio. We want to take over. We want to reverse the feed. I want to go on CNN. Call them. Tell them the Brick Man is here, and I'm coming for you.
My Lord.
Oh,
Well,
If
This
you're
is Wheeling,
listening
West
to me,
Virginia.
come and save us. No.
This is Wheeling, West Virginia. We're taking over your radio waves. What's the address for the satellite? He's got a cute little computer here. We can turn around and take over.
We'll hack in.
Hack in.
yeah, that would be sweet.
Renegade Radio.
Hijack the feed.
all right, definitely get out there to Bel Air. The toy
Here's
plastic.
Jordan.
Alaska's
Saving the
taking
show.
over. We got a vice president and we got a Bionicle builder. We're taking over your children.
Now, there is a scary
I'm
thought.
scared. The Bionicle could be in the White House.
Oh, isn't that great?
There we go.
Yeah, this thing's got like opposable necks and feet, and oh my!
Have you
God.
ever built anything for anybody famous?
Yeah, me.
Dan Brown. He wrote Da Vinci Code. No.
Oh, don't go there! Oh, the lawyers! I can hear them calling now. Oh, don't do that.
I'm
Yeah, he's
sorry.
already
He
had
did
his
not
phone
write
with
Da
lawyers.
Vinci
I
Code.
didn't write Da Vinci Code.
He
All
did
right.
make a Mona Lisa out of brick, right?
No,
Was
no
that you?
comment. No, Eric Harshberger made that one.
Oh,
but
okay. That
it's in the
thing's
museum.
awesome.
It's in the museum.
Yes. Mona Lisa out of the brick. You got to go see it, Lola. All right.
Could you get sued for that?
What for making the Mona Lisa?
Yeah.
Probably not.
I think the copyrights.
No,
been
I
out.
think that. Yeah, see, that's.
I
I'll
just
see you
wondered.
in
You
court,
never
Da
know.
Vinci.
I think she's quite dead.
You never know.
Okay, make your way out to the Toy and Plastic Brick Museum in Bel Air. What's the number again, Dan? Sing it for us.
888-867-5310. There you go. 310.
All right, and you'll be hearing more from Dan as the weeks go by. Dan is going to be sponsoring our show.
Yes, he is.
So
I'm taking over.
He is going to be part of us.
I'm afraid he is.
I only scared 2% of the populace. Thank you.
All right,
We scared the
gotta
rest.
we got to take a break and let CNN do their thing, and then we will be back with Whispers on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog.
Pulling out at first dawn's light. Gotta free my mind, get you out of sight. Pull across this open sea. Sparkle blue beauty like a young man's dream. Oh, my world is falling in, all around me tumbling.
Welcome back to Whispers, the Valley's only source for paranormal talk radio here on WKKX 1600 AM, the Valley's Watchdog. It is 7:08 p.m., about 73 degrees out. Phone numbers here, 304-214-1600, or nationally, if you're watching us online, 866-514-1600.
Okay, and our guest tonight is Dr. Michael A. Cremo. Dr. Cremo is a world-renowned expert in archaeological evidence for extreme human antiquity and alternative theories of human origins. He is principal author of the book Forbidden Archaeology. His latest book is Human De-Evolution, a Vedic alternative to Darwin's theory. He writes a regular column titled The Forbidden Archaeologist for Atlantis Rising magazine and has appeared on numerous television and radio shows, including Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell and George Norrie. He has presented papers on his work at leading scientific institutions, the Royal Institution in London, the Russian Academy of Sciences in Moscow, many others, and scientific conferences organized by leading archaeological societies such as European Association of Archaeologists or the Archaeological Congress, and he has also spoken at many of the world's leading universities. His papers have been published in peer-reviewed conference proceedings, volumes. After receiving a scholarship to study international affairs at George Washington University, Michael began to study the ancient histories of India known as the Vedas. In this way, he has broadened his academic knowledge of spirituality from the Eastern tradition. Glad to have you with us, Michael.
Happy to be with you and all your listeners.
Now, your latest book out is called Human De-Evolution. So I have to ask the question, what is de-evolution exactly?
Is it de-evolution or devolution?
I say devolution, but you know I'll accept de-evolution if people want to pronounce it like that. Basically, after I wrote my book Forbidden Archaeology, which contains a lot of archaeological evidence that contradicts the Darwinian theory of human evolution, people began to ask me, well, if we didn't evolve from apes, then where did we come from? So my book, Human Devolution, is my answer to that question. And to put it in a nutshell, to put it very, very simply, what I propose in that book is that we don't evolve up from matter, as most scientists now believe, but rather we devolve or come down from a level of pure consciousness or spirit. And I propose that, before we even really ask this question, where did human beings come from, we should first of all ask the question, what is a human being? Now, today, many scientists are going to say, well, a human being is just a combination of chemicals, just a combination of the ordinary material elements. But I think when we look at all the evidence that comes to us from various fields of science, we'll see it's more reasonable to say that a human being is made of three things. Ordinary matter, yes. But beyond that, there is a subtle mind element that has some very unusual powers like psychokinesis, mind over matter, telepathy, remote viewing. And then beyond that, there is a conscious self that can exist completely apart from the body. So basically what I'm saying is we didn't evolve up from matter, but down from pure consciousness, or spirit, if you like that word.
So what would that be exactly? Are you meaning spirit like Christian spirit, like what's inside of you?
I prefer to use the word pure consciousness. Consciousness is the basic feature of our existence. We wouldn't be having this conversation if I weren't conscious and you weren't conscious. It may be difficult for us to put what we think consciousness is into its words, but we all know we have it. We all experience it. The question is, what is the origin of that consciousness, that individual, personal, conscious self that we all experience every day, and which is the basis of everything else that we do or say? So many scientists today will say that consciousness is just a product of chemicals interacting in the brain at a certain level of complexity. And they'll say if you disorganize the chemicals, then you won't have any more consciousness or love or anything that's associated with consciousness. But what I'm proposing is that consciousness itself is primary. Consciousness always exists. It existed before this body. It will exist after this body. And I would say originally we existed as beings, pure beings of consciousness with individuality and personality on some higher level of the cosmos. And some of us have departed from that level of pure consciousness, and we've become covered by the lower energies of mind and matter. And our purpose of life, our main purpose of life, should be to restore consciousness to its original pure state.
Now, how do you propose that we do that?
I have practice that I do, but what I encourage people to do is look within their tradition, because I think within all the great spiritual traditions of the world, we find some practice of yoga or meditation or prayer or contemplation that is meant to help us do that. By that I don't mean the more external forms of religion, which can be a source of conflict in the world as we see today. I'm talking about the esoteric traditions within all of the great world spiritual traditions. Just like a geologist can tell us how we can extract the element pure gold from its ore where it may be mixed with other less valuable elements. Now, once you've got the gold out, you could form it into coins, and you could stamp those coins with the symbols of different nations. But if it's really gold, it really doesn't matter what symbol you've stamped on it. So I would say if we are able to extract this element of pure consciousness through these different spiritual techniques, and recognize that, yes, I am a being of pure consciousness, all other living things, they are also beings of pure consciousness, and they're all coming from the same source. There's no need for us to be fighting with each other for scarce material resources like oil. There's no need for us to be overexploiting our environment so that we cause all kinds of environmental destruction. There's no need for there to be conflict on all levels, individual, social, even between religions. We're all coming from the same source. We all have the same origin. We're all the same in terms of being individuals, persons with consciousness. And developing that understanding should be our main purpose of life. And if we're able to do it, then I don't think it matters what you call the process. You could call it Hinduism or Islam or Christianity or Judaism.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to ask. Like,
Yeah.
your views seem a lot Eastern religion, kind of like Swamis and Yogi.
Well,
that type of...
personally for me, yes, but I don't think truth I don't have a monopoly on truth, and I think there's truth to be found in all of the world's great spiritual traditions. There are saints, mystics. I think you can find truth in a lot of different places, and I think that's one of the big problems that we have in the world today is so many people are claiming that only they have the truth, whether it's the truth of politics or the truth of religion or the truth of culture, and therefore we see a lot of unnecessary conflict in the world today. That's my opinion. That's how I see it.
And you could probably even put that on to, with the scientists, saying the evolution itself is the truth and the only, truth itself.
Intellectual truths and things of that sort. I've had a lot of experience with that because obviously a lot of the work that I've done in terms of my work in forbidden archaeology and things like that strongly challenge the current dominant scientific theories of human origin.
Now, our listeners might not, I know a couple people here aren't familiar with the forbidden archaeology itself. Can you briefly tell us, what kind of ideas you came up with in the book that were so, jarring to the scientific community?
Yes, I can definitely do that. Well, first, let's look at what the current Darwinian evolutionary theory says. That theory says that human beings like ourselves, like you and me, came into existence only about 100,000 or 150,000 years ago. And before that, there weren't any human beings like us. There were just more primitive, ape-like human ancestors that they called Neanderthal and Homo erectus and things like that. And before that, they say, there were only some very primitive apes and monkeys. And before that, different reptiles, and before that, fish, and before that, microorganisms in the ocean. So that's what they say. And they say that all the physical evidence supports that idea, that human beings like us are a fairly recent occurrence on Earth. But when I did 8 years of research into the whole history of archaeology, I found, well, that's not true. Archaeologists all over the world have found evidence that human beings like us were existing millions of years ago, and the evidence includes human skeletons, human footprints, and human artifacts from all parts of the world. And this is in the scientific literature, but it doesn't make it into the textbooks because it contradicts, the current theories. There's what I call a process of knowledge filtration going on. I'll just give a couple of examples from the United States. In the 19th century, gold was discovered in California. There was a gold rush there. So miners went to get the gold, and they were digging tunnels into the sides of mountains like Table Mountain in the Sierra Nevada mountains in California. And deep inside these tunnels, the miners found in the solid rock human skeletons and human artifacts, obsidian spear points, stone mortars and pestles, and things like that. So what makes these interesting is that the human bones and human artifacts were found in layers of solid rock 50 million years old, which completely contradicts anything that we learn today in the textbooks about human origins.
So the rocks definitely weren't too acidic.
Right. So these discoveries, they were reported to the scientific world by Dr. J.D. Whitney, who was the chief government geologist of California. Mount Whitney is named after him. And his report was published by Harvard University. So we're not talking about just some stray report. This is a professional scientist publishing a report through a respected university, Harvard University. But we don't hear about these discoveries today in the textbooks. And that's because of this process of knowledge filtration. There was another scientist, a contemporary of Dr. Whitney. His name was William Holmes. He was an anthropologist working at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington. And he said, well, if Dr. Whitney had understood the theory of evolution, of human evolution, he wouldn't have published that report. In other words, if the facts didn't support the theory of evolution, then the facts had to be set aside, and that's exactly what happened. So if there were just one case like that, well, maybe, it'd be understandable. People might be skeptical, but there are hundreds of cases like this from the scientific literature of the past 150 years showing that humans like us have existed practically since the very beginning of the history of life on Earth.
Okay, so my question, why would scientists hide the fact,
Well, I've thought about that quite a bit, and it's a question I get almost every time I speak. And I think there's a few reasons. First, I think it's just human nature. For example, if I love somebody and somebody tells me something bad about the person I love, I don't want to believe it. I may even become angry at the person who tells me because it just doesn't fit my picture of the person that I love. Now, I think scientists, to some extent, are human beings like anybody else. They have emotions, and when they hear something that goes against the theory that they love, the Darwinian theory of evolution, then naturally they don't want to believe it. They resist it. They may become angry at people who report things like this. So in one sense, I think it's just human nature. In another sense, I think there is something deeper going on. I think it has a lot to do with power. There are various kinds of power in the world. There's military power, there's political power, there's economic power. There's also intellectual power. It's a very subtle power, but a very real one. Now, one thing we see is that people who have power, monopoly power especially, don't like to give it up. If one political party has a monopoly in the political life of the country, it doesn't want to give up its position. If one corporation has a monopoly in a certain sector of the economy, it doesn't want to give up its monopoly position. So today, in the education system and in the scientific institutions generally, the Darwinian theory of evolution has basically a government-enforced monopoly. By law, you can't teach any other idea in the education system. So I think it's quite natural that people who possess power like this don't want to give it up. So I think there's several reasons why.
Now, you mentioned earlier something called a knowledge filter. What exactly do you mean by that, and how exactly would that kind of a filter work?
It represents what I call the knowledge filter represents the dominant consensus in the world of science today about a particular topic. And evidence that goes along with the consensus will pass through this social and intellectual filter very easily, which means students will read about that evidence in their textbooks. People will see scientists talking about it on television. If they go to the local museum, they'll see the artifacts on display and things like that. But if you have evidence that radically contradicts the dominant consensus, it gets filtered out, which means you don't read about it in the textbooks. You don't see scientists talking about it on these PBS science shows like Nova and all that. And if you go to the local museum, you may not see the artifacts, although they may be somewhere in the museum. They're just not displayed to the public. So this kind of knowledge filtration, it operates in practically all fields. It operates in politics. It operates in economics. It operates in science, as I've shown. It operates in the field of archaeology, for example. The artifacts from the California gold mines that I mentioned a little bit earlier, the 50-million-year-old human artifacts from the California gold mines, are still in the collection of the Museum of Anthropology of the University of California at Berkeley, but they're not shown to the public. This is what I'm talking about. And it also operates, for example, in other fields, paranormal fields, the UFO field, for example. There are many credible reports of UFOs, but they get filtered out of the official media, the official scientific literature, the official government reports.
Now, I know in archaeology, which of course you're part of, in Egyptology, the studies of the pyramids and stuff. There's also this kind of a backlash toward any theory, but the one that we learn about in grade school and high school.
That's
Yes, in Egyptology that does go on. I know some of the researchers in what I would call alternative Egyptology, like Graham Hancock and Robert Bivall and John Anthony West, and Robert Schock, a geologist who's done a lot of research about the Sphinx. And basically they've all concluded that these monuments, the pyramids, the Sphinx, all of that, is far older. They're far older than we're now being told. And they've done excellent research on that. But because it radically contradicts the dominant scientific consensus on this question, those views are excluded, from the education system. Fortunately, there are ways that people can get knowledge aside from the official education system. We have the World Wide Web now. We have alternative radio. We have all kinds of ways people can get knowledge now. It's much easier for people to get knowledge of this kind that's been filtered out from the official media and from the official education system.
Can you imagine if somebody could really make a splash and get the kind of attention that would be needed to try and change literally, you would be changing the course of history.
Yes. Well, everything we know.
Yeah, just take Egyptology for one small segment. I mean, that is a lot of money that would be lost in the change of theory as to even when these events occurred. I mean, you'd be changing the Bible. Every single aspect of our life and our education would be drastically different if these facts came out and were made mainstream.
Yes, I think that's true. And I think a lot of people are aware of that possibility. I think that's why you see the popularity of films like Indiana Jones and the National Treasure and things like that. There's a grain of truth in those things, and I think you're absolutely right. But there are people who don't want to see such changes, and I was mentioning this intellectual power that scientists and others have in our society today. And it's really, most people don't think about it very much. When they think of power, they think of military power or economic power.
Presidential power.
Presidential power.
As a matter of fact.
But really, at the root of it all lies this intellectual power. Yeah. And how it works is like this. The goals that we set for ourselves, individually and collectively, are based on the answers that we give to the fundamental questions. Who am I and where did I come from? So for the past 100 years or so, through their monopoly in the education system, the scientists have been able to give to all of us, dictate to us, very materialistic answers to these questions. They tell us, you're just another kind of animal, you're just a collection of chemicals, you're a purely material being. So I think it's no surprise that our whole worldwide human civilization has taken a very materialistic turn, so that most people think that the main goal of life is to produce and consume more and more material things. Now that process of producing and consuming unlimited quantities of material things generates a huge amount of wealth. And that wealth flows into the pockets of scientists and others who invent different kinds of drugs, pharmaceuticals, weapons, consumer products.
Lola's a big fan of pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
She had to go to the dentist last week, and it's the only thing that kept her going.
Hey, Michael, hold on just a second. We got a few phone calls.
Sure.
Okay, this is Justin.
Hi,
Justin, you're on the air.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Justin.
Do you have a question?
Yes, all I wanted to know was how did you get into this type of studies?
Well, that's a very good question. it has to do with some experiences I had when I was in my 20s. I began to think I want to find my own path of truth, and that search took me around the world. And finally, I found I became interested in the ancient Sanskrit writings of India. I found a teacher, a guru from India who I liked, and I began studying these ancient writings, which had accounts of human civilizations that existed millions of years ago in the past. It was completely different from anything that I'd ever heard from my teachers in high school or university. So then I discovered, that the same kinds of accounts could be found not just in these ancient writings from India, but from practically all the great spiritual traditions of the world. So I thought, if there's any truth to what these writings are saying, there should be some physical evidence to support it. Now, when I looked in the current textbooks of history and archaeology and anthropology, I didn't see any such evidence. So I decided to go further. I said, okay, I'm going to go beyond the textbooks. I'm going to look at the original scientific reports of scientists from the time of Darwin up to the present. And when I did that, I found something very amazing. In those original scientific reports, in the original scientific literature in many different languages, there were many reports of scientists finding human bones, human artifacts, and human footprints millions of years old.
That's incredible.
Now, at first, I thought, okay, maybe I'll do 8 weeks of research, and then I'll write a little article about it, and then I'll go on to something else. But that 8 weeks of research turned into 8 months because one case led to another. I would find some report, maybe in French or something like that from 1893 about some discovery that was made in France. And then in some little footnote I'd see, and then such and such scientist found some human skeletons and that he thought were 20 million years old, but we know that can't possibly be true. So I would find out, I would look up that article, maybe in another German archaeological publication, and it would be really great. It would be a fantastic description of finding human bones millions of years old. And you would think, well, could there be something wrong with this evidence? But the report would say, no, he considered all the possibilities, how maybe it had slipped down from some higher level. He said, no, there's no evidence of that whatsoever. So by tracing out these reports, one led to another. And the 8 weeks of research turned into 8 months, and the 8 months turned into 8 years, and then finally it was enough to put into this book, Forbidden Archaeology, which is 900 pages long.
It's a big book.
Big.
Full of hundreds of cases. Now I know that some people read a 900-page book, so I brought out a shorter edition of it called The Hidden History of the Human Race. So if 900 pages sounds like too much, you can get the short edition of it called The Hidden History of the Human Race.
Hey, I just wanted to say thank you for your call, Justin.
Yes, thanks, Justin. We do have another call,
awesome.
too. You want to take that one?
Sure, let's hear it.
Okay, this is Scott.
Hi, Scott.
Hey, what's up?
Hello.
Yeah, I just want to ask him, about physical evidence. I just like to see it because...
Does he have any evidence that is 20 million years old, or pictures or proof?
Oh, yeah, well, these things do exist. Now, for example...
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they're going to dump it because that doesn't go with the Christian whatever, how the world is ran.
Yeah, but no, there is physical evidence. Now, I started out by studying reports in the archaeological literature. For example, the story of the California gold mine discoveries.
Yeah,
I first learned about that by reading books. And then I found out some of the artifacts are still in the Museum of Anthropology at the University of California at Berkeley. So a couple of years ago, I was a consultant for a television special that was shown on NBC. It was called The Mysterious Origins of Man.
Mm-hmm.
And when they were filming that, I told the producer he should go to this museum and film the artifacts. But they refused to allow him to do it. They wouldn't. The museum officials just wouldn't let him have access to it.
Oh wow!
But then a couple of years later, I was doing a report on these discoveries for the World Archaeological Congress, which is the world's largest international organization of archaeologists. So I, because of my connection with the World Archaeological Congress, I was able to get permission from the director of the museum to study and photograph some of these human artifacts from the California gold mines. Now, they're not shown to the public. They're kept in a storage building several miles from the museum itself. And I had to go with
That's convenient.
I had to go with a museum official, and there was like heavy security and all this. But I was able to study them and photograph them, and I was able to make a report to the World Archaeological Congress about these discoveries, with photographs of the actual artifacts.
Right. Michael, just real quick, does thou do? Oh God, I can't talk.
Does thou?
I actually. No. That's my problem today. Do the bones actually look like artifacts that would be found, say, even from just the known time that man became really civilized, according to our system?
current-
God, I can't talk tonight.
The current thought.
Yeah.
Yes.
Education, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Judeo-Christian upbringing.
There's a lot of different kinds of things that have been found. One thing that was found was a gold chain, and this was found in the town of Morrisonville, Illinois, in the year 1892, I think it was. And from the report, we were able to find out what mine the coal came from that this object was found in, and this gold chain was 10 inches long. So today people wear gold chains, and you might have one on yourself right now. But the amazing thing about this, it was found in layers of coal 300 million years old, which is really amazing.
Wow.
And then in the same state of Illinois, in Macoupin County, Illinois, there was a report in a scientific publication called The Geologist that a human skeleton had been found 90 feet below the surface of the ground, also in a layer of coal, that was 300 million years old. So you have a human skeleton, and there was a doctor present at the discovery, and he said, yes, it's human. It's not any kind of ape man or some other kind of animal. The bones are definitely human. And then you found in the same state, you have a report that a gold chain was found in layers of rock of the same age. So now I don't have any reports that 747s have been found. And I mean, if that's what you're looking for.
No, that's just in my imagination, but we won't go there.
Hey, Scott, thanks for your call, man.
Yeah.
Scott, are you still there? Do we
No,
lose you?
I just.
All right. All right. Now, was this an Indian tribe? Like, what were they? Like, what
was their civilization like? Do you have any idea of
were you
that?
able to study it that much? I mean,
No,
did you just know that they're people?
I think those are topics for further research. I think what I've done is I've just kind of scratched the surface. I think for all the details about what their civilization was like and things of that sort, you have to do more research, which is one thing I'm trying to do, is open the minds of a new generation of researchers to go out and start looking for these things, because nobody's looking for them now.
That seems to be the problem you're having is, you found, it's almost like you found where the gold is,
right?
But nobody wants to go get it,
Right.
Can't lead a horse to water.
Nobody will let you talk about it.
Yeah, but some people are. I think that's the exciting time that we're living in. And another thing is this. There are two kinds of information about the past. One is the kind of information we can dig out of the ground, and then the other is the records left by some of these ancient civilizations. And I'm kind of familiar with what we find in the Sanskrit writings, which tell us that and these writings are thousands of years old, but they give histories that go back even further than that. And they tell of civilizations in the distant past that had spaceships that could travel from planet to planet, that had weapons resembling our atomic weapons today, that had electricity, and in addition to mystic powers and things of that sort.
Now that kind of goes into what we were saying last week about Roswell. You know, how, we got this big technological boom, after Roswell.
Well, yes, I think there's a fine book by Colonel Corso, who was a government official, military official, that was involved in that, and he wrote in his memoirs, which he published shortly before his death, that was his specific job, is to derive the technologies from that source, and that's where we got our miniature computers and all that sort of stuff.
Which would be The Day After Roswell, correct? That's the name of the book, if I remember correctly. Philip J. Corso.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, we got a couple other calls.
Sure.
Hold on just a minute.
Okay, this is another Scott.
Hello, another Scott.
Hey.
Scott number 3 for the day.
Scotty.
Hey, I had a question. When you're talking about humans that are supposedly being dated back to, like 2 million years ago and stuff like that, what type of dating is being used to determine that date?
Okay, that's a really good question. There's different kinds of dating, but they have their limitations. A lot of people are familiar with carbon dating, but that only works back to about 50,000 or 100,000 years. When you get something older than that, then carbon dating won't work. It just doesn't apply to that. So there's another kind of dating called uranium series dating that will date bones that go back several 100,000 years. Now, when you go further back than several 100,000 years, 500,000 or 600,000 years, say to 2 million years, there's no method that will allow you to directly date the bone.
So it's kind of like a guess.
Yeah, that's what kills me about it. Is they'll date something back 4 to 7 million years. Well, there's 3 million years there you got to deal with. It's not just like
so how they. But there
2
are
years.
methods. There are methods, radiometric methods, where you can date the layers of rock in which the object is found. Now, for example, there are methods that will allow you to date volcanic deposits. So say you're digging down and you find a layer of lava, a thick layer of lava, like 4 or 5 feet thick. There's a method called the potassium argon method that will allow you to date how old that layer of lava is. So maybe it comes out 2 million years, let's say. Then say you dig down further and you find, you come to another layer of rock with a human skeleton in it. So, and you can see that above, the lava flow above the skeleton is unbroken. There's no cracks in it. There's no disturbance. That would indicate that the skeleton is at least 2 million years old. So basically, say when scientists find bones of dinosaurs or other living things that are more than a few 100,000 years old, that are millions of years old, they cannot date them directly. They have to rely on methods that date the layers of rock above them or below them or in which they're surrounded.
That's pretty impressive. I think that my brain just grew just a little bit there. Thanks for your call, Scott.
All right, thanks.
We got one more?
Yes, we do. This is Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Yes, I'd like to ask you a question, then I'll hang up and listen to your answer.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Bill.
When you first started, you said that we did not evolve, but we devolved from pure consciousness. Please connect that to the findings of 20-million-year-old bones. Connect the dots for me, please. Thank you.
Okay. Well, if we're finding bones of humans 20 million years old, that contradicts the current theories of human origins. So that means we need new theories of human origins. One idea that I worked with is, all right, we need a new theory of human origins, but I wanted it to take into account everything we can actually observe about human beings. So that means before we even ask the question, where did human beings come from, we should first of all ask the question, what is a human being? So when I looked at all the scientific evidence, I could see, well, okay, there's a material part of the human being, the bones and things like that could get left in the ground and stuff like that. But there's more. It seems like there's more to a human being than that. We have a subtle mind element that has some very unusual powers, like remote viewing or psychokinesis. And there are scientists who have studied these things. So that means, there's this mind element associated with a human being that has paranormal powers. And then there's also evidence that there's a conscious self that can exist apart from the body. For example, there's out-of-body experiences, which many people report. So then I began to think, well, okay, how did all these things come together in the human form? So I would say originally we existed as beings of pure consciousness. And then if we depart from that level, we can become covered by matter in the form of bodies. That could be, and once you have a body, well, that physical body could die, and then it could leave bones in the ground. But I would say that this process has been going on for millions and millions of years, so that a conscious self may have existed many millions of years ago. It had a body. The body died, left some bones in the ground 20 million years ago. But where did that conscious self go? I believe in reincarnation. I think that conscious self can go to another physical body, maybe a human being, maybe an animal or a plant. Let's say it goes to another human being. So then it could leave another body with bones in the ground. And then it could leave that body, go to another physical body, which would leave some bones in the ground. But eventually, if it takes seriously what I've said, that the purpose of human life is to get out of that whole cycle, to go back to that level of pure consciousness by the practice of prayer, meditation, contemplation, yoga, things like that.
And think fresh.
Then gradually it would re-evolve, I would say, back to its original position, where it wouldn't have a body that could leave bones in the ground.
Huh.
Like that.
All right. Hey,
I don't know if that makes it any more easy to understand, but that's my attempt.
That's
now,
great.
Of course, if Bill's wanting to know more, your books again, The Human De-Evolution, or Devolution, as Jordan and you were saying earlier, was your latest book. Also, Forbidden Archaeology.
Hidden History of the Human Race, too.
Hidden History of the Human Race. First I'd heard about that one. I'll go ahead and add that to our website as well. So,
all right, hey, Michael, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom and your ideas with us and our listeners.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
We enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Well, that was certainly interesting.
All righty.
Definitely a different theory there.
Now I was with it, and I thought it was interesting with, the bones
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Being, hidden bones like in boxes and warehouses that aren't being said. But I really, really liked Bill's question.
Yeah.
and I don't want to be mean, but he kind of called it out.
Yep. It's two different, to me, it's two different things. Yeah. There's his spiritual side that he has done a lot of investigation and really studied some Eastern religions and that kind of thing. And then there's the archaeological side, which whether mainstream wants to believe that these bones or acknowledge the fact that there could be bones from 150 million years ago or whatever it was. But to me, they are two separate things. I was
It's
with
two
him
different
through the
ideas,
archaeology
yeah.
part, but boy, when he starts,
the spiritual hubbub is kind of like way out there, and you got to it's like trying to grasp the idea of the universe.
So here's a little fun fact.
You can't think that the universe was the size of a golf ball. You know what I mean?
Here's a little fun fact for you. Did a little bit of looking up on Michael Cremo, and he actually studied under the same Swami as John Lennon. And I wanted
I was thinking that as he was talking, I was thinking he is just like John Lennon, but he's writing books instead of songs. No joke. That is what I was thinking in my head.
I couldn't bring myself to throw in a Beatles reference.
why? They threw in my drug use. I guess. What's the difference?
Well, everybody knows about that.
Well, I just want to bring up the fact that Jordan usually, what his pattern is, he'll comment you several times, and then he'll just swat you down. He does that every show, and I have them archived.
And he does that to everybody, friends or not.
Yeah,
they're all liars.
But I do want to point out he's been asked this question before. I've listened to him before on Coast to Coast AM, and he does a very good job of presenting his evidence. And before he had written the book Human De-Evolution, people would ask him, okay, fine, just like Bill kind of brought up. We've got 100, 200, further back of human antiquity. Where did we come from? And I think what he's trying to do is this is his answer. I think it's his personal answer.
Yeah.
As to what he's saying, and it's harder. Fine, we can all look at the bones or not look at the bones as they're being hidden.
In his book Forbidden Archaeology, it's a huge book, and you skim through because I'm a skimmer. And there's like little pictures of all these bones. The guy's done the research on the archaeological side.
Yeah.
He's really hit it all.
It's really dug in.
God.
Oh, dirty pun.
Yeah, terrible pun.
Yes.
Come on, Nick. Where's the claps for that?
I'm not clapping. I'm turning away from you now.
Like he's really done his research, but man, when you get into the spiritual side, it doesn't match up with what he's saying, and that's what's confusing.
Yeah,
so you're saying you have a bone to pick with him about the spiritual side.
Yeah, we're gonna start.
I'm sorry. Now see what you started.
It's hard when you're trying to make an argument and you contradict yourself. That was something I was taught when I was a sophomore in high school. If you're going to debate about something, don't contradict yourself. That's how you lose.
Now, how do you know where exactly would he be contradicting himself?
What Jordan just said. He's talking about a spiritual coming of the body, saying that everything starts with the spiritual aspect of it, which is great and awesome. But if it all starts with a spiritual, where does the body come from? How do we still develop? That's his whole argument.
He said we weakened from our pure conscious, and that's when matter started forming to us.
So we get weak and start collecting stuff.
Kind of like those dust bunnies
Magneto.
under the bed. They just kind of grow.
And I've noticed the lazier that I get,
the dirtier you get.
Well, the bigger it grows.
The more matter that
the more girth you gain.
So I guess that makes me more secular.
Oh, wow.
I have become really lazy. Well, he also talks about, at this point we're being trained, which I can agree with him on this. We're being trained to reproduce and produce and consume.
Oh yeah,
and that is there, and I can agree with him on that.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm coming at it from a Christian perspective.
Right.
Lola, you're coming at it from an agnostic or atheist perspective. To me, it's hard to. But for both of us, though, we agree on this is a hard thing to see. Yeah. Us coming from these spiritual beings, and all of a sudden
why would you think I'm agnostic or atheist?
I have no idea. You've said it before. Okay, all right. Well, what are you? I'm sorry.
You just condemned her.
Well, I know that we're all three Christians over here. And I thought she was. I'm sorry. Now I have really.
Lola, you better get that mic and defend yourself.
She's going to cut off my mic.
There's no defense to this.
I'm very sorry, Lola. That's where. Wow. Jeez. Okay.
Wow. I come at it as my perspective is that the Earth isn't millions and millions of years old. That it's just like it's presented in the Bible. That it's only 6,000 or 7,000 years old.
Okay, here, Bill's back. He's got a question for us now.
Bill.
Okay,
Hey,
Bill, what?
Hi, Bill.
Yeah, this is different. I want to ask you guys, is there any place in the Wheeling area that Jens would be scared to go by yourself at night?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Jordan.
I would. Like I said, we had a question. I don't know if you're the one that asked it or not. I think it was a Bill that asked. Did you call earlier?
Just the last.
Yes,
Okay.
he called to talk to
Yeah.
Michael Creamer.
He called the mic.
Well, I
Yeah, he
thought
called.
we had another Bill that
No,
asked.
that was Wade.
That was Wade.
Yeah, it was a different guy.
Well, we had a Victorian home that we went to a while back. I can't say where it's at, but it was just an older, Victorian style home, and that we had a lot of personal experiences going on with that. And
Jordan had one of the major personal experiences where
Yeah.
a little girl, as we were talking about earlier with the black-eyed kids and how creepy they are, actually sung and he heard it with his own
Yeah.
ears. So,
Yeah.
and there was no little girls
There.
present, and he was on the third floor. We were all on the first floor.
and
Except for-
it was me and another investigator, and all of a sudden you just hear really audibly this little girl start singing. And
We've
I
played the recording of
yeah,
that before.
Yeah, we have it there. We have it online at wheelingparanormal.com, which is our group.
Actually, I don't know if we have that online.
Well, we will. Nick will get
We'll get that taken care of. At least, at the very least, I'll have it on our website tonight, whispersradio.com. So,
But that was audible. You always hear these
2
EVPs
minutes,
and
guys.
stuff like that, but they're never audible. And this one you
can
heard,
hear
and
it.
it was to the point. It was scary to the point that the investigator I was with quit that night.
Yeah. And you also had experiences where it was, I know people on our team heard change being dropped, like pocket change, coins being dropped, and they would go look, and there's nothing on the floor, nothing laying around.
We heard all
You could
kinds
hear
of stuff.
faucets coming on, water faucets coming on and shutting off.
I'm sitting there. We actually went back in after Jordan had this experience, and we at the same night, and Jordan went up back to the third floor, and him, the same investigator, we were down on the first floor. We were, told, okay, no talking, and I'm sitting there, looking at people, whispering, or not even whispering, but like mouthing, why are they talking? And they swear they weren't talking on the recorders. They weren't talking. But I was hearing stuff. They were wondering, they're making fun. I told you Nick couldn't shut up, And we weren't talking. And I mean, it was just constant in that. And it was, and the whole night.
It was
ordeal.
nonstop all night.
Yeah, and it was crazy. And that would be my answer.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yeah,
Sure.
real quick.
Okay. I always been interested in the occult, and in a way, I kind of wish there were vampires because except for the fact that you would have to live off of blood,
You've read too much Anne Rice.
300 or 400 years just to see how the world will be, But when I was younger, okay, there used to be a train bridge that went across the river from Martin's Ferry through North Wheeling. There was a tunnel there. And then there was another tunnel on the other side of that tunnel. Okay, and then after you come out of that tunnel, you're kind of over by Blawnox, and then you go into Tunnel Green, Okay, so I always try to make myself scared. Well, one dark night, about 1 in the morning, I walked through that tunnel by the train bridge, and then through the other one, nothing. And I was about 16. When I went through the Green Tunnel, I felt a presence in there, and I was scared.
Yeah, tunnel.
Now,
Yeah,
I
we've been
later
in there.
found out that there was somebody actually murdered in there.
Yeah, there was
And
a story about that.
cemetery above it.
Right
Is that
above,
true?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was an immigrant that got murdered, supposedly, and I know that's actually in a couple of books, and if I can find the
Well, we do
something
have
online, I'll put that on for
we
you.
have West Virginia Ghost coming on.
Yeah, we'll have
Yeah.
her on.
That's before they made it into a jogging trail. That's been years ago.
Oh, yeah.
When it still had railroad tracks and stuff in there.
Yeah, we went in there,
I
and it
really
was
did
hard to get
feel that
scared.
I felt a presence. I really did.
Well, Bill, thanks a lot. I
Okay.
hate to cut you off, but we're at the top of the hour. Thanks
Okay.
for calling.
Thanks a lot,
Yeah.
Bill. All right, check us out next week. We have Jeff Wamsley.
Yeah, Jeff Wamsley coming back, the Mothman guy.
He's a nice
and then,
guy.
He has the Mothman Festival coming up, and he's going to share with us what's going on there, give us some info about it, and more
After
discussions
that,
about
Stephanie
Mothman.
Moore with West Virginia Ghost, and then I know Steve had said he's kind of looking forward to this. He's going to be in with us, hopefully. Haunted Baseball with Dan Gordon. That's going to be
right.
fun. So and
Build it and they will come.
and if I disappear, Lola has killed me. I'm sorry, Lola.
The West Virginia Ghosts. We're hoping to get them on to talk about stories, because what they do is they collect ghost stories from West Virginia.
Yeah.
So
Entire state, so.
definitely get your ghost stories ready. Anything that you felt, heard, seen. Give us a call, share it, and I'm sure she'd love to hear it, and maybe add it to her website.
And that's
or
on the
anything that she's doing.
17th. So, and then we'll be back at our regular time. I'm guessing 8 o'clock. So,
Next
if
week.
you're waiting for us to
Wednesday.
come on now, we've been here before. You missed us. You have to go online and listen to us there.
All right.
Thanks, you guys.
That's our
Have
time.
a great night tonight.
All right. Until next week, don't be afraid, only believe.